Well, I don't know how this is going to work. It says share this live stream with your audience. I hope I have one. I've been having a lot of problems trying to get my laptop up and running and become acclimated to it and some of the eccentricities that I've encountered just because it's different than a desktop computer. And at this present time, we're in a hotel room uh, in the tribe's hotel due to damages in our apartment in which they're trying to repair. And it looks like Barb and I will be here another 5 to 7 days. So we're trying to make adjustments to that. But I wanted to take some time and share with you some of the things that have happened. For one thing, in June, I turned 80 years of age. And I feel very uh, I'm trying to think of the word, very thankful to be here, to be doing what I'm doing. And in my notes the other day, I was reading and thinking about some things concerning Mary. I think to understand the circumstances concerning Mary and her life, realizing the atmosphere and conditions she was born into, and some of the legal issues that she could have encountered if it hadn't been for the Lord. This woman called Mary was found pregnant, having never known a man. Her husband considered divorcing her privately, and an angel appeared and instructed Moses that the baby Mary was carrying was of God's uh, impregnating her and not a man. If we consider God, our Creator, who sent Moses back into Egypt after 40 years of exile, to be an advocate along with Aaron to initiate God's effort to free his people, the Hebrews, from bondage that they had been in for 400 years. And he went there complaining, but he went, and Aaron helped him, and we know what happened. In these last days, God enrobes himself in flesh to enter the enemy's camp, offer freedom through Jesus Christ. And it is said in the scripture that he whom the Son has set free is free indeed. So then we have to ask ourselves, how important is Jesus in our lives or in our focus? We know in our lives have been impacted by charlatans posing and presenting themselves as representatives of Jesus Christ. Uh, the dysfunctional part of it was that they turned the idea of freedom, posing as representatives of God, into a twisted state and built religious empires under false pretenses. And we're still impacted by those empires today. I say false pretenses because the biblical God, my given revelation of salvation that recognizes God's church fellowship, was not evident and still isn't in their religious construction and their religious posturing. This religious posturing was a tool they needed to promote the growth and um, the development of political empires. Then their religious born political empires came to this continent, and in their growth, uh, numbers were enslaved and either enslaved or murdered. When the carnage on the continent and the magnitude of the Holocaust was being questioned by the world's media reps that came hearing about the Civil War, and they began asking questions about what happened to the native inhabitants that lived here. And most of the tribes, or many of the tribes in the east, had been removed to the west side of the Mississippi in an area that was called Indian Territory. When these media reps came and asked these questions, the government realized it had to enter into a more subtle uh, manner of action that was not so obvious as what had taken place prior to that. And so the idea of boarding schools came up with the thinking that they could change a whole generation's minds. And so much so that they wouldn't know where they came from, they wouldn't know their culture, they wouldn't know their language, and they would be so disoriented that the only thing that was obvious to them was the idea of Western theology and conduct. This involved nearly a generation of our family, our native family. Uh, they were forcibly removed from their homes under an edict by President Jackson, and they were removed to the boarding schools. And this edict by President Jackson had been made uh, and carried out by those presidents that followed him, including Abraham Lincoln. The place called Indian Territory was discovered to have oil on it. And so it was determined that they would open the land to settlement. And there was a mad land rush, and we have a history of that here. And people went out and claimed large segments of land. Um, and of course, oil was discovered or continued to be discovered and used as a product.